she is late.
What I thought was wonderful about the script is it didn't appear to be a straight biopic or a straight story that told everything in a completely factual and linear way. It was an interesting fable almost, or fairy tale version of how we can imagine Diana, who's beloved to so many people, finally making the decision to perhaps break up her family, which would have been a hugely, important decision to make. So that was obviously something that grabbed me straight away. Also knowing the way that Pablo would have handled the material. Something like this could go either way. It could be a real train wreck. So I knew in Pablo's hands it would be crafted into a wonderful story, fable. So yeah, it was very exciting. I think it takes some real courage to say, okay, we're going to make a film about the royal family set at Sandringham, but we're going to shoot the locations in Germany. How do you do that? You're not even in the right country. There's going to be differences with the architecture, the streets, the roads, the cars are left and right steering. Everything is different. So there were hundreds of challenges for he and I to discuss on the phone. But I think interestingly, conceptually, one thing really hit us both like a bolt of lightning, which was that this house, Sandringham, really to most people is a dream house. It's a place where you would love to live. People would dream to be a princess and live in a place like this. But to someone like Diana, who became a princess very, very early, it had sort of become this sort of golden prison. You know, it had become an elegant prison, I think was the expression that Pablo coined for the overall feel of this main set in our story. There were certain things that we felt audiences, particularly the British audience, would look at and put their crosshairs on, so to speak, in terms of accuracy. I think certainly, to speak on behalf of Jacqueline, our costume designer, Pablo and I, we made great efforts to make sure that Kristen looked the part and that her wardrobe was not only accurate to the late 80s and the early 90s, but also in watching a lot of footage about Diana, it was interesting to see, for example, things reappearing in her life that were just a little eccentric and unusual for royalty. For example, her love of, quite honestly, cheaper, fast cars. I'm blown away by her performance, and I'll let you into a little secret. On our very first day of the shoot, I very rarely listen to the dialogue because I'm more concerned with making sure that everything we see is correct or the way Pablo wants it to be seen and presented. So I very rarely grab a pair of headphones, but on Kristen's first day of dialogue, I was desperate to hear her British accent to see how she was doing. And I was absolutely stunned. She must have worked so hard. Really impressive. I speak only from my own perspective, and maybe people will have a different opinion, but for me, I think she's done incredibly well. It's extraordinary, her performance. I mean, everybody, Sally, Kristen, they're all amazing. There really is no right or wrong in this story, which I love. There's not a sort of a conclusion. Yes, Diana was treated badly, or the royal family were terrible, or vice versa. I think you're really just watching, you're looking through a keyhole and seeing an imaginary interpretation of somebody struggling who comes from clearly the modern world. And when I say the modern world, I mean the modern world of the late 80s and early 90s, with this very established tradition that went back hundreds of years, and watching that sort of struggle go on. And seeing these interesting characters whose survival depends on them holding this tradition together.